Once you have chosen a topic, you will need to think deeply about it. I hope in this presentation class that you can go deeper in your research, in your thinking, and in your analysis. However, it's not easy to think deeply about a topic, so I will give you one way to do it. You might be surprised, but I truly believe that the first step when you want to think deeply about your topic is to think offline. What I mean by offline is not connected to the internet. You can think, you can write, and you can talk when you think offline, but you don't do research on the internet. Actually, thinking, writing, and talking are described as creative acts, meaning you are more creative when you do these activities. And this is something that a researcher, Aguirre, says, and I totally agree with him. So give yourself time to think. You might need to take notes while you're thinking. For some of us, writing helps clarify what we're thinking. It's easier to understand what we're thinking. To give yourself time to think, you might also want to take a walk. Again, Professor Aguirre agrees on that, and he has a personal story of coming up with a great idea while walking. And as far as I'm concerned, I've also experienced that seeing something different or being in a different environment truly helps. Once you've done your thinking, then go ahead and share. Share your thinking, but also listen to others, right? So talk deeply with others. And I'm talking about listening especially here because I think that sometimes it's quite hard to stop thinking about what you want to say and just listen to people talking. However, if you can manage this, to actually just listen to them and not think about what you're going to say, I think you'll be surprised at how much you can learn. Again, while you're listening to what people are saying, really listening to what people are saying, I would advise to take notes. Even more so when you're listening to people, because in this situation, it's not just your thinking, but the thinking of others you have to remember or understand more deeply. And I think that it's much easier to remember what they say and better understand what they said if you take notes. And in addition, notes help to connect others' ideas to yours, right? So if you have your notes and you have the notes you took of what others think, it's easier to look at them and connect to see what is similar or the same and what is different. And also for what is similar and different, how is it similar and how is it different? This might help you think even more deeply. I think talking with others is giving you an amazing chance at getting other perspectives, right? Different perspectives. And this is to me an amazing chance because it will help you be less biased. Biased means that you tend to think in only one way and you cannot see other ways to think. And in some cases, this can be really dramatic. To give you an example, I would like to introduce to you one of my favorite people in the world. His name is His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And if we go back to the fact that we're looking also at finding a category of topic that you are interested in this case, if I chose to do a presentation on His Holiness the Dalai Lama, it would be people. So, what do I know about him? This is going to be my starting point, my personal experience. Yes, indeed, I have seen him several times because I've lived in the same small town as him in India. I've also attended several of his lectures or classes. So, what do I think of His Holiness the Dalai Lama? Well, I think it's a person who is very peaceful, and actually each time I see him, I feel really relaxed just seeing him. And so I do have a lot of stories I can share with the audience, but this is just my perspective. So I need to have a wider point of view, not so narrow, not just my experience, but make my point of view bigger. How can I do this? Ask myself the following questions. Who is he for Tibetans? For the refugees, right? So the Tibetan refugees who live in India, but also the Tibetans who still live in Tibet under Chinese governance, right? Under the Chinese government. Also, I can ask myself the question of who is he for the Chinese government? And who is he for non-Tibetans? These different perspectives on the same person will give you a less biased opinion, right? So not just my opinion, he's very peaceful and I respect him, but I will be able to get these different opinions about him and give a better view of who he is. This picture allows me to visually explain to you what I mean by different perspectives. If you look at these different angles, that's another way of talking about perspective, they're all looking at the same thing here, but from a slightly different angle, from a slightly different place. And because of that, they see it slightly differently. And because of that, if you combine or put together what everybody sees, I think you have a better picture or a better understanding of what they're looking at. Once you have a wider point of view, bring the topic home. What does this mean? See how your topic is connected or not connected to Japan. In both situations, you will probably learn something and be able to share it with your audience in your presentation. In my case, I could ask myself the question, does the Japanese government recognize the Dalai Lama as an official guest when he comes to Japan? In that case, this could create problems with China because the Chinese government does not recognize the Dalai Lama as an official person. Actually, the Chinese government sometimes describes the Dalai Lama as a terrorist. Always think about what is your own opinion, right? Because here we're talking about the government, so what about you? How do you think about this topic? What do you think about this topic? And then, last question, why is it this way, right? Why is the situation that you've discovered this way? And in the case of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, as I just said, it is connected to Japan's relationship with China. Is Japan going to take a risk and recognize His Holiness as an official guest and maybe make China unhappy? Or is it not going to do it to keep good relationships with China? So, how could you think more efficiently or more deeply? First, I think you should try to think offline. Offline means you don't go on the internet. Instead, you give yourself time to think first so that you can know what is in your head, and then you talk deeply with others, truly listening to what their opinion is. You will learn about step 2 from a classmate, but basically step 2 is think online, think on the internet. Thank you for your attention.